our job search during the pandemic. I guess there's a little bit of housekeeping. I'll try to keep it short. We'll try to leave some question time at the end, but I'd like to make this as kind of a conversation as much as possible. So please do feel free to send through any questions that you might have, and either Yvonne or myself can answer them for you. All right. So we're going to spend about 20 minutes today talking through the different elements for you to consider when navigating the job market during the pandemic. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, so we're going to cover the importance of understanding our strengths, skills and abilities before we put ourselves onto the job market, how we can upskill during this period where we're all stuck at home, ways of being proactive in our job search, how networking and accessing what we call the hidden job market can help you with your job search, especially during coronavirus, and also the importance of positivity, not just in relation to job search, but just overall when you're putting yourself out there and applying for positions. So quite a bit to cover today. So we'll jump straight into it. So even without coronavirus, I think there's a lot of competition for positions. So it's incredibly important, regardless of the current kind of health climate, to be on top of your game. So a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. You need to first know what you have to offer when you're applying for any position or when you're putting yourself out there. So use your resume and cover letter as an opportunity to kind of highlight those transferable skills that employers are looking for. When our team goes out and talks to different employers, some of the top things that we hear that employers are looking for are creativity, so creative thinking, problem solving ability, which is one that's been kind of consistent for quite a very long time. And a new skill is something like people that have a digital mindset. So these are just some of the things that, as you're applying for positions, you want to try highlight as much as you can on your resume, and you want to try to highlight as much of the skill sets that you have that match the position as you can. So spend a little bit more time on every application that you write, just to make sure that your cover letter, your resume, or your selection criteria responses match the position as much as it can. When I think submitting a generic resume can be tempting, especially when you're applying for lots of different positions, but I think it's quite unlikely to get through to the interview round if you're not tailoring it to that specific position. In addition to that, if you're applying for positions that have screening software in any way, to get past the screening software, you need to actually be able to match keywords to the job title, the responsibilities, or the skills that that particular employer is looking for. So we're not saying copy and paste the job ad into your resume or cover letter, but make sure that the majority of the kind of important aspects of the job are in your resume and cover letter if you possess that skill set. Now, I think the easiest thing to do is, if you're not too sure how to tailor your application, reach out to your university career service, and they will likely have a resume or application support service to assist you. But I think now is the time to make sure that every application you put in is really high quality and really matches to the position. A couple things to consider if one of the questions that I get from a lot of our students is, well, I'm not really too sure what skills I actually bring to a position. There is a range of free kind of tools online, like My Future or Job Outlook, where you can actually go through and do a bit of a skills inventory to see what your top skills and attributes that you bring to a role. And this might be a starting point for that conversation of what can I bring to a position. While we're all still stuck at home, now I think is the perfect time to kind of consider upskilling yourself if you can. We see that employers really value applicants that have a range of different skills. So educational background is one, leadership and extracurriculars is the other. And we also see employers really value students that take the time to, do a little bit of research into the tools that the company might work in and potentially do a free online course in that area. As a bit of an example, I work as a careers consultant. So my role is to speak with students on a regular basis or to run these sorts of workshops. But on a daily basis, I'm doing something in terms of website development or something to do with marketing or potentially HTML. So these are skills that typically you wouldn't associate with my job, but they're really valuable to my position. So if I were to go out and do a Code Academy course in HTML, I think that would make me more employable for the sort of position that I'm in at the moment. So these are the things that you can consider doing. while we're all stuck at home. There are a range of different free things online, and these are just some of the places that you can consider looking to kind of beef up those technical qualifications. And it really kind of adds to that digital mindset that we were talking about earlier as well. Moving on from that, and this kind of connects quite well in terms of being proactive, so use the time to develop yourself. We know that it's a very difficult time to apply positions, so you want to be proactive in a range of different ways. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment in terms of the national and the global impact on hiring. We're seeing employers still going ahead with hiring, but they potentially are being a little bit more cautious. Now is not the time to stop applying for positions and to say, I'll just wait it out and see what happens. You want to keep looking for positions, and you want to continue to be a little bit picky if you can as well. I think there's a real temptation to say, oh, coronavirus is happening, I will take anything that I can take. I'll do anything. I think saying this could be a little bit of a mistake and a bit of a resume killer or application killer if you're saying it to a recruiter. If you put yourself into the recruiter's shoes, perhaps, I think they would rather hire someone that, is passionate about a really specific position or industry rather than someone that's kind of, willing to go for anything and isn't particularly interested in that role. I think, this might be a little bit of an unfair representation, but I think if you come across as saying, I'll do anything, it makes the employer think that you're not particularly passionate or interested in the job. You still want to find positions that fit with your career interest, either your background and discipline, or the sort of industry that you might want to go into the future. So take the time, continue brainstorming your ideas for different jobs. I certainly thought I would end up in one particular career when I graduated, and I've ended up in a completely different path. So you can still be really open to different career opportunities. Expand the range of jobs, but just don't say, I'll do absolutely anything, please give me a job. Have a look into industries that you might be interested that you may not have considered in the past. Have a think about which specific employers in those industries that you might be interested in going for and consider targeting those employers. And then have a think about the type of role that you might be interested in as well. If you'd asked me if I thought I'd end up in a kind of web sort of role in this position, I never thought I would be. So there are a range of different positions that you may not have considered previously that still fit with what you're looking for within your career. So just expand that job search if you can. If you've kind of gone through the interview process for a role and it was really hopeful, but unfortunately it kind of got shut down as a result of the pandemic, make sure to stay connected with the recruiter for that position. Those opportunities potentially will still be available. And it could be a case of just sending an email every so often saying, I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about your organization when it makes sense for you. I'm obviously still interested in this opportunity. So make sure you kind of take this time to broaden your horizons, broaden your search, but still kind of pick positions that are in your kind of area of interest. Use the time as well, and I mentioned this earlier, to really get that application right. So that you might be applying for fewer positions, but you're submitting higher quality applications where you can. And I think that will increase your likelihood of getting a job if those applications are specific to the role. The other big thing to consider right now, even if it's not for job search, is to continue engaging with your existing network. Now, a lot of people will understand that it's a very difficult time, and they want to help in whatever way they can potentially. So if you're at the point where you're looking for internships or graduate programs, let your friends and family know. Reach out to former colleagues and let them know that you're looking for something, and if they happen to see something, to keep you in mind. They might let you know and notify you if something comes up, or they might even be willing to connect you with a hiring manager or a friend that they know that might be looking for someone in the future. Don't hesitate to reach out to former bosses as well. They're more likely to hire you rather than, say, your competition, because they know your skills, they know your work ethic. Even if they're not hiring now, they still might be able to reach out to their connections to recommend you for something. So it's the perfect time to kind of consider reaching out for people, either potentially for information or job, but just to kind of get an idea of what opportunities are available at the moment. Some other things you can do in terms of engaging with existing networks is Join professional associations either through Facebook and LinkedIn. Both of the platforms offer a range of different kind of interest groups according to your industry or profession. So for instance, if you're interested in marketing, I know there's a LinkedIn Global Marketing and Communications Network. Join in the conversation, post and comment, and make yourself visible in those groups, because that's a way of increasing your network as well. And if someone happens to see that you've commented on an article that they're interested in, they might say, hey, I might have a conversation with this person, and that could lead to something else as well. Consider creating new networks. And it's a little bit of a funny thing to say, go out and create new networks when we're all stuck at home. It's still very possible to create new networks. You can do it through leveraging existing connections by reaching out to your boss, your former boss, and they might connect you with someone else. Joining professional associations that might be related to the sort of profession that you're in, following employers on social media, engaging with different business councils. We're still seeing organizations run conferences and networking events, even in a virtual setting, and that's a way to engage with a network as well. Attend careers fairs like this and have conversations with employers today. If you're going to their sessions, make sure to ask questions that show that you're interested in their organization, and attend your either on-campus or virtual employer events through your career services as well. So your universities will likely still be offering virtual sessions, and that's a way that you can kind of build your network. By showing interest in an industry and asking questions, you're able to demonstrate to an employer that you might potentially be a great asset for them. And to kind of prepare you for these conversations, I'd encourage you to develop a little bit of an elevator pitch. Now, your elevator pitch is quite simple. It's something along the lines of, what are you studying at the moment? What experience are you looking for? And what previous skills and experiences do you have that you think might be a good fit for that organization? An elevator pitch might not guarantee any job for you, but it's a way of telling your story to an employer or a particular network that might kind of engage them to, refer you to someone else or to give them some information. So if you go out of this session with one thing to kind of prepare, have a think about doing an elevator pitch, because you'll use it if you're having a conversation with someone over the phone, if you're attending a virtual networking event and you have to introduce yourself, or if you're talking to a recruiter through LinkedIn or in one of today's sessions. Your elevator pitch will get across kind of a little bit about your background and what you're hoping to achieve as well. So consider writing one up and consider practicing in front of a mirror, in front of a friend, or recording yourself, just so that you kind of get comfortable with telling your story to other people. In addition to this, and we've talked about this a little bit already, is take the time to make sure that your network knows who you are. So yes, reach out to family, friends, and former bosses, but be clear on what you're looking for. If you're talking to a former supervisor, you might be looking for something a little bit different from when you worked with them previous. So take the time to get that elevator pitch right and tell them what you're hoping to achieve. Now, when we talk about networking, just something to keep in mind, the purpose of networking isn't to get a job. The purpose of networking is to get information, or potentially to be in a position where you've earned the right to ask for a favor. So you're able to kind of get insights into the industry, you're able to get advice, which I think is incredibly valuable during this period of time. Potentially, you might get to the point where you're being referred for positions, and you might even be able at some point to ask for a job referral if you've built a strong relationship with that particular professional. You want to take the time to build rapport, show interest, learn from others, appreciate that they're giving their time, and be respectful of other people's networks and connections as well, because people's time is precious, and it's not guaranteed that you'll get something out of this. So just keep that in the back of your mind. The purpose of successful networking is to get potentially advice and information. You're not always going to get a job out of it. Other ways during the coronavirus is to actually directly approach employers for a position. This has been one of the most common kind of ways to look for positions. Even if a company doesn't have a job opening, you can still be proactive and reach out to them. A lot of job seekers have landed their dream position in their ideal industry because they've had the courage to ask for something. And it could be the case that they don't have anything right now, but they'll keep your name down, or you've applied for something and you haven't been successful in getting the role, but they really liked your application and they'll keep they'll keep your name on file in case anything comes up. It's one way of getting your foot into the door, and it's one way of introducing yourself to an organization as well and seeing if they might be a good employer for you. So if you're going to consider direct approaching employers, there are a couple of different things to consider. Have a really clear idea on the sort of industry that you want to work into, the sorts of jobs that you're going for. Don't just kind of direct approach 100 different employers. It's the same thing that we would say in terms of applying for positions. Sometimes less is more, because you have the time to be really targeted in your approach. Choose your method of contact. No one's going to be walking into an office space at the moment and asking to have a conversation with anyone. So phone or email at the moment is probably the best way to do it. LinkedIn is the other way to do it. Virtual is probably best at the time being. It's going to depend a little bit on the sort of industry that you're going into. If you're looking for a casual part-time job in retail or hospitality, then hopping on the phone might be one way to do it. But if you're looking to get into a professional role, then LinkedIn and email is probably a better avenue to get in touch with people. Write a bit of a speculative application. So you might actually take your time to prepare a bit of a cover letter and a resume, or maybe both, for that particular organization, to demonstrate that you've done your research, you're aware of how you might be a good fit for that employer. You might follow up with a phone call or an email after 1 or 2 weeks if you haven't heard back. Don't pester them too much, because recruitment does take time, but it could be a way of showing that you actually looked into the organization, you know what they do, and you've been able to pitch yourself to say, here's how I might be able to be a great fit for your organization. And that's just one way to kind of direct approach employers if you haven't been given a connection to the organization. Outside of that, outside of your direct job approach or networking, you can consider something called informational interviewing, which is same in the networking sense, where you're trying to increase your knowledge about a particular area. It's not always a great idea to go straight out to someone and ask, do you have a job for me? Because they might not have someone available, they might not be in a position to hire, and you might have set up a really bad view of yourself if you're just asking straight away. Informational interview gives you the opportunity to have a conversation potentially with a recruiter or someone in an organization that you know, to increase your knowledge about the opportunities, which in turn makes your application more informed, provides you specific information about the company and what they're looking for. Again, makes you more informed when you're writing your application. It also gives you practice with speaking with different employers as well. I consider myself to be quite introverted, and the thought of going out and speaking with lots and lots of different people sometimes makes me quite uncomfortable. The way I've been able to kind of get more used to that is to regularly speak to different groups of people. So you can use this as a way of practicing for an interview perhaps, where you're going out, having those conversations and engaging in a professional way. So by the time you get to that interview stage, you're comfortable about talking about yourself in a professional manner, and you're comfortable about kind of upselling your skills and experiences for the role. It builds your industry contacts, it expands your network as well, and then it could lead to recommendations or referrals for an opportunity. If you want to kind of start with informational interviewing, attend some of the sessions today that are part of the Diversity and Inclusion Fair. Have a conversation with some recruiters, and at the end you might say, look, I'm really interested in learning a little bit more. Can I connect with you on LinkedIn to ask some questions? Otherwise, if you're kind of cold calling through LinkedIn, here's a little bit of information that you could consider writing. I came across your profile on LinkedIn, or your colleague referred me to talk to you, and I'm really impressed by your organization or your background. Would I be able to take some of your time to ask for some advice on job search strategies? So you're not asking for a job, you're asking for information and advice. So something to consider doing today if you've got that opportunity and you're meeting with a different employer, because it might be a nice way to kind of practice that skill if you can. Now, a couple of different things to consider, and we've talked about this already, but I'll do a quick summary. Broaden your job search, look into who is hiring. If you're studying at the ANU, come and have a chat with us. If you're at a different university, go and have a chat with your career centre to see what opportunities are available, and look into those different connections as well. And these are just some of the top things to consider if you're conducting that job search. The last thing to kind of look into is what we call the hidden job market. A huge proportion of positions are hired through connections rather than directly advertising for a role. So employers, I think, would rather save their advertisement costs, and they're not particularly targeted when you're writing a job advertisement and putting it online. If someone's looking to hire someone in, they're going to likely try to find someone that's known to the organization, because, you know, potentially someone that's either worked there, that's been tried and tested, someone that's been referred by a potential colleague, because they're more likely to fit in with the culture of the organization, and they've been vetted to an extent. Now, we've already talked about ways to access the hidden job market, and that's usually through networking and informational interviewing and getting kind of recommendations from current staff. So this is where I'd kind of continue saying it's really important for you to continue engaging with your existing networks and building those new networks if you can, because yes, it is still common to apply for a job through a job ad, to go through kind of the whole recruitment process, but sometimes you're more likely to get an opportunity by someone recommending you, or someone saying, hey, I saw this position advertised online, I think you'd be a great fit, you should consider applying, which is actually how I've gotten a lot of my positions. Actually, someone's kept me in mind because I've regularly kept in contact. So just consider that, you know, you want to keep looking to see what's out there, but you want to make the effort to continue engaging with your audience, to see what is there in terms of the hidden job market. I'm going to wrap up soon because I want to leave some time for questions as well. The other thing to kind of consider during job search during the coronavirus is preparing yourself for virtual interviews. It is becoming increasingly common outside of coronavirus to have some sort of virtual portion as part of your recruitment process. It's going to be even more common now with coronavirus. So a couple of things to keep in mind. You want to prepare yourself as much as you can. Choose a comfortable environment, check that your technology and your internet's working, and you're still dressing as if you're going to a face-to-face interview. If you're an ANU student, there's a tool called ANU Interview Stream where you can record yourself online practicing interview questions. Your university might have something similar, but the easiest way is to have a sit down with a friend or family member and ask them if they can conduct a bit of a mock interview. Go to your career service, or just record yourself on a camera practicing answering a couple of things, or practicing your elevator pitch, because it makes you a little bit more comfortable when you do go in for that interview. Make sure, you know, your camera is kind of a little bit higher. Try to avoid looking at yourself when you're presenting or you're talking, because it's distracting. So you're still trying to maintain that eye contact and that conversational tone where you can. Now, I'll leave the conversation on this final note. We have a lot of students coming to us saying, I've got no idea what I'm going to do. The job market's really difficult at the moment. Are employers still applying? Employers are still applying. I think we just need to be more creative in the way that we look for different things. So continue staying as positive as you can in terms of your job search, but these are all things that apply outside of job search as well. So, you know, think up. So wake up saying positive things, avoid negative media, avoid the thought of saying I'm never going to get a job, expand your horizons in that sense. Keep positive reminders around in terms of, you know, what new opportunities or new jobs might bring, or, you know, how this kind of pandemic might give you the opportunity to learn a new skill if you can. Make the effort to kind of take care of yourself, move around more, surround yourself by positive people, keep at the top of your game in terms of your skill set, your resume, but also in developing yourself as well. Make sure, I think, to spend some time kind of figuring out what you want and do what's best for you. So you're still trying to take the time to find the best opportunity for you, despite the situation with coronavirus. There are still opportunities out there. It's just about really being targeted in the positions you go for, writing that tailored application, and just getting yourself used to pitching yourself to different employers and organizations. I'm going to leave it there because I've talked a little bit too much, but does anyone have any questions that they'd like to go through before we wrap up? You're welcome to unmute your microphone or send something through the chat feature if that's easier for you. Any questions today? All right. I think we're done with today's session. Thanks so much for joining us. I really do encourage you to go around and have a chat with different employers and attend different sessions today to get the most out of it that you can. Enjoy the session, and spend the time kind of taking care of yourself and being kind of really be picky in what you want. So just don't take anything that comes along. I think now's the time to make sure that you pick the right thing. And the thing I always like to say is that your first career might not be the career that you end up in. There is plenty of time to look for opportunities. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your sessions.